Camp Happy Days is a nonprofit that many of us know and love here in Charleston. They provide support and services to South Carolina children diagnosed with cancer, along with their families. And today we have the pleasure of sitting down with the executive director, Cindy Hay Johnson.
This is Charleston Women Podcast, where you can meet like-minded, strong, independent, professional, and inspiring local women. This is Charleston Women Podcast.
And now I would like to welcome Cindy Hay Johnson, the executive director of Camp Happy Days, to the podcast. Cindy, thank you for joining us.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here.
Yes, we are thrilled to have you. I think a lot of Charlestonians know who you are and the wonderful work that you've done for years and years. But we have so many new people moving here. So just get us familiar with Camp Happy Days and your mission to start things off.
Sure. Camp Happy Days is going on its 40th year in existence. And it started as a camp for children with cancer. And the reason it started 40 years ago as a camp for children with cancer is that the survival rates for children that had cancer were at about 65%. And this gave those children an opportunity to be at a camp where there was a medical staff and where they could just be kids again. And that all of the research was saying that it was critically important to give these kids the joy of life, feeling like they were, had other people going through the same experiences, giving them hope. And from that small handful of children, we've grown those programs over the years. So now our summer camp, which is still our flagship program, is a week-long summer camp, and it includes the children with cancer as well as their siblings, because as we all know, the whole family is affected by cancer in a multitude of ways, and the siblings typically feel left out. So it gives them that opportunity to be there with the child that has cancer. And of course, then it gives the parents or the guardians a week to rest and get their lives back.
So they get a break, essentially. Everybody needs it. A child with cancer or not, everyone needs a break. So, and I think that's what makes you guys so unique. And I'm glad that you brought that up in the beginning, is that you include the siblings, right? Because I'm sure they just feel, the child's getting all the attention. Like you said, they feel left out. So what a bonding experience for them to go to.
Well, and the thing that, Erin, that I think most people, unless you've experienced this, you have no idea what that diagnosis means to a family. One, it is going to affect the entire family in, psychologically, physically, financially. But the piece that most people don't really understand is when your child's diagnosed with cancer, that means at a minimum, you are going to go back and forth to that hospital for chemo and maybe radiation. And that is going to take a long time. And many children require hospitalization. So you've got a family with 2 or 3 kids. One parent is staying in that hospital with the child, and one parent, if it's a 2-parent family, is taking care of the siblings. Well, the other thing that's critical to understand is that many children with cancer also have to have bone marrow transplants. That's why MUSC has the largest pediatric oncology department in the state, because they do those bone marrow transplants. Well, then you're talking about 180 days in the hospital.
Wow.
And most families, if they're not from Charleston, they have to live here for almost a year.
Right.
So think about that. Legally in South Carolina, your parent or guardian has to be with you in the hospital. So what happens to that family that just has one parent
for a year.
What happens with the siblings?
Right.
So that's what people have to understand. That's why we have 16 programs, and they're all cost-free, and they're year-round, because there are so many needs that family has.
Hi, this is Bill Maschio, inviting you to join me for the Who Are They and Where Did They Move From podcast, a special edition of Voice for Real Estate. The Southern hospitality and the coastal lifestyle found along South Carolina's shoreline is attracting thousands of new residents on a weekly basis. From the West Coast to the Northeast and all places between, they are making their way to explore coastal Carolina. The Who Are They and Where Did They Move From podcast, where you'll meet these new South Carolina residents.
You're listening to the Charleston Women Podcast.
You mentioned in the beginning, the rate of survival of childhood cancer was, not that great. When you see these kids and they go to camp or they participate in any of their activities and they have their friends and other kids who are like them, I know it's not medicine, I know it's not chemo or radiation, but do you see a difference, just in their health sometimes, right? Because of the spirit, because of the positivity that surrounds them, like that has to be healing.
It is absolutely huge. Right. In fact, now, just to give you an idea, in the 40 years, now there's an 85% survival rate. But just so everyone fully understands, 1/3 of those children that survive will have another cancer in their lifetime. Virtually 100% of those children that survive will have lasting or side effects from either the cancer or the treatment. Right. But, those numbers are still great compared to what they were.
Right.
And I have seen camp work miracles. I mean, I've seen children that were on palliative care that came to camp, and it just transformed where they were. And you see kids that show up and, they have no hair and they're just so timid and fragile. And you just see them blossom.
Right.
And the doctors that come from MUSC that are in our med shed, it's the most incredible experience for them.
Because they're probably looking at the science of it, and saying, what is happening? I love hearing that. We all love hearing that. As a community, 40 years, I know your support has just grown from Charleston and the Low Country. You have a couple of things coming up, though. First of all, your big gala that we can go and just have a good time and help support you. And you also have a new home, if you will, new building. So I want to talk about both of those. Let's start with the gala, just so we as a community know how we can support you and make our donations, et cetera.
So for 30 years, this will be our 31st gala. We have had one every year. It started with one of our past board members, pediatric cancer survivor, volunteer extraordinaire, Alan Kabaddi. And he actually started this, what was originally known as the Kabooty Party.
I remember that. I remember those days.
Yeah. In his apartment while he was in college. And it just grew over the years. I mean, one year they had James Brown. How amazing could that have been? But this year will be our 31st. And it's by far the largest fundraiser we have because it raises all of those unrestricted dollars. So they go directly to programming. And this year it is Hello Rio as part of the Carnival theme.
Fun.
And it will be at Festival Hall on Friday, February 25th.
Okay.
And it's a sellout. We're so excited about it.
It's going to be so fun. And if anyone listening to this, later, let's say after the gala is over, I imagine we can go to your website at any time to camphappydays.org and make a monetary donation to support you.
You can. We also have a live auction. Mm-hmm. So if they go to the website, they can, sign up and take a look at the auction items. They can bid on them online. Or, they can buy a ticket or two and come to the gala and bid on other items.
Yeah. Now let's move on to your new home. This is a big deal. You guys have I'll let you tell. We've discussed it before, but it's incredible to me, the space that you're going to have and what you're going to be able to do with it. So let's just start with where it is. Where are you guys moving to?
We just moved in. It's at 933 DuPont's Road, right off of Sam Rittenberg. So it's very close to MUSC. And for the first time ever, and this has been a dream of mine. So I'm so excited that we'll have a space where we can have wellness classes. We can do teen and preteen lock-ins. We'll have gardening. We have a teaching kitchen that will, teach kids how to do some of the shakes and different things that always they crave, especially when they're during chemo and radiation. Mm-hmm. We have a multi-purpose room for arts and crafts and all different kinds of family events. Mm-hmm. And we have a family lounge. So families that come for the day and have tests in the morning and have to stay in town, we'll have a place where they can come sit down. We'll have computers, TV, a kitchen. So we're just thrilled about all of the new programs that we'll be able to provide.
It's great that you guys are doing so much. You mentioned the family. We talked about them coming here and having to live forever in the hospital, if you will. But let's just talk about the families getting support from each other. Because when you get that diagnosis, your world shatters. I'm sure you feel so isolated. So there's a huge benefit in that family lounge now, right? To go and maybe meet other parents and other families and ask questions and get that moral and emotional support.
The area that, in looking at all of our programs and what we're doing, one of the key things that I found we were missing those support groups. Mm-hmm. We were missing those dad's nights and mother's nights and different events where they could meet. We always have a family weekend camp. And that's a great opportunity for them to bond. We do, family events, but none of those are really specifically designed for that close bonding. Sure. The other thing that I realized that we really needed to have more programming around was bereavement. And whether that's bereavement for siblings or parents, just in what they're going through, or those support groups, for the whatever they're going through, whether it's the loss of a child or it's just how is that sibling being able to deal with, their brother or sister going through this fight. And there's so much in terms of both of those that I feel like we haven't been able to address that we now can. And, some of those small group meetings where you get all of those teens together and you really understand what they need. Because a teen is different. A teen is going to be aware of what they have. Right. They're going to know who they were before that diagnosis and who they are after. And so they deal with depression and isolation and many different things. And so often in the hospital, those can be addressed while they're a patient, but they need that support when they're out of treatment or not in the hospital.
Right. Absolutely. 40 years, you said. Do you have any idea roughly how many children or how many families that you have served or helped in the last 40 years?
It's hard to know. We've served 1,717 families in 1 year. So if you multiplied that, we usually serve between 250 and 275 kids just during our summer camp. That doesn't include family weekends, team weekends, preteen weekends, and all of the rest. In fact, one area that we really had to juggle and figure out how to help these families was during the pandemic with crisis resources. These parents, in many cases, have given up a job in order to take care of their child. So, we were able to double and triple the amount of financial assistance we could give families. And that was huge. And the support that we could give through holiday giving, where you adopt families and you take care of the children's Christmas or holiday wish list. Absolutely. But, the world changed and we all had to change with it.
Absolutely. What would you say? I have two questions for you before we finish. I'll start with the more negative of the two, if you will, because we talk to so many nonprofits all the time, and it's always a struggle, right, to get your funding. But as you mentioned, with the pandemic and just the changed global landscape, it's harder than ever. So what is your biggest challenge right now? Because as listeners and viewers, how can we help? Even if we don't have the resources to give you those funds, maybe we could do a simple share on your posts, right, and spread the word.
One of the things that we noticed had really increased a lot during the pandemic was social media. That has been tremendous for us. So we've been very conscientious about putting things on social media. So we would love people to share. We also have wish list, not only for camp, but for our new building and programs that we have out on social media. In fact, we've used a new program called My Registry. So it's almost like registering for a wedding or a shower, and you go on and, you can purchase things and send them to us. So that has been incredible. But I think every one of the nonprofits will tell you it's all about raising unrestricted funds. Grants are critical, and grants are typically for a specific program or need. It's the unrestricted. So events like a Hello Rio Gala, that's where we raise a lot of funds. So we depend on meeting our budget for those.
Absolutely. I hear all the nonprofits say the same thing, those non-restrictive funds. Absolutely. Last question. Where would you like to see Camp Happy Days, we'll say in five years? You've just moved into your new space. I know you're going to continue to grow there, but do you have any larger visions of the next 5 to 10 even? Where do you see it going?
I see our growth as unlimited. One of the things that we were able to really help and grow in during this pandemic was we did a virtual camp. And we realized that with these programs in camp, that we weren't reaching children in the hospital or children that were too isolated and weren't able to come to camp. So we served all of the hospitals that had oncology floors during this pandemic. And it was tremendous because no one else could do it. And we started Wednesday programming, bedtime stories for the doodlebugs, games for the preteens, and, all kinds of activities for the teens. And they've grown, and kids from all over the state have been able to do those. And we're really one of the few that have maintained and grown these programs over the last 2 years. So those are extremely important. But I think we'll continue to expand and be able to support more families. The other thing is there are, Columbia Hospital in Greenville, they have some programs for their kids, like a summer camp and things like that. But they don't have the wide variety of all of the programs or the financial assistance or the teen programs and the family weekends. So I see that we will really continue to fulfill those goals across the state and certainly for MUSC. And I'd love to have a robust array of support services. We've hired a child life specialist that, understands the whole process of a child and a family going through this diagnosis and what sort of therapies and programs can help these children. So what I see is we'll be serving, maybe double the number of children and families, and that they will really be impactful programs because they'll be designed specifically for those needs.
Right. The good that came out of the pandemic, right? The way you were able to grow and reach more people. It's been a bad thing, but also good on so many levels. CampHappyDays.org is your website. Any other way? What's your social media handle so people can follow and share your message?
It's on the website.
It's on the website. I'm sure it's at Camp Happy Days.
Camp Happy Days.
Not to put you on the spot.
I know.
CampHappyDays.org. Just go to Instagram or Facebook. Learning. Type it in. You'll find it. Cindy, it has been such a pleasure to talk to you. Is there anything else that I forgot that you would like to add before we go?
No, just, please go to our website and bid on items for the gala. If you can get a couple of tickets and be there, it'll be wonderful. But, look for us on social media, share, and we have wish lists if there are things you can give.
Absolutely. And we'll have to talk again before the holidays. I love how you can sponsor a family or a child. That's wonderful. Cindy, thank you for your time so much today.
Thank you, Erin. This is wonderful.
Absolutely.
We appreciate it.
Thank you. You've been listening to the Charleston Women Podcast with Cindy Hay Johnson, Executive Director of Camp Happy Days.
Thanks for spending time with Charleston Women Podcast. Please like us and follow us on whatever platform you're using to access Charleston Women Podcast.